For this cake, am I? I will pay. So stressful morning.
Oh no, Simon, getting in trouble.
Oh, no.
Would you do it again? Was it that tasty?
It's blooming good cake. Yeah, I'll do it, but I'll do it cleverer next time. I pay
Criminal
for it.
cake.
I pay for it. Yeah. So,
The life of a chess player.
yeah, it was a nice cake, but you know.
All right, here we go. Game 3. Magnus, Eric. And what are we seeing on the board?
Yeah, it's a slow start to this game. As we saw, Eric arriving a bit late there, but it's transposed now into the Queen's Gambit, and a variation of the Queen's Gambit declined. That means that Black not taking one of the white pawns that has been offered up early on, and Eric going for a very solid variation. Will we go into what we call the Tarash defense, named after Siegbert Tarash, very, very strong chess player from the past? Or will we go into the semi-Tarash defense, where we see different types of pawn trades? Look at all the pawns in the center of the board right now. There's options for white. Magnus, in the past, has taken one of those pawns. He's also just kind of maintained the tension and let Eric make that decision to trade or not to trade. That's the question at this early stage. Magnus just weighing up his options.
Yeah, I have to say, it does feel like it's a little bit of a risky decision, because I know Magnus is the world champion and he's played everything, but he really has used this opening on the black side so many times. And I've never seen Eric use this opening. Have you?
Nope. Eric, he's normally a specialist of the Grunfeld defense. We discussed that a bit earlier, actually, in the last game between Prag and Duda. But Eric, in the Grunfeld defense, lost to Prag yesterday, lost to Magnus today. So he's changed opening. He's gone to something that he nearly never uses. Maybe he plays this opening more in Blitz online or in bullet chess, but it's not his normal opening. And, OK, we did see a trade of pawns, even a trade of knights. And it's a very similar pawn structure to what we saw in the last game. So it's very Grunfeld-esque. The type of position looks like a Grunfeld, but it's a different opening. And in this type of position, white having the pawn center normally gives a long-term advantage. White often actually trading the advantage of the pawn center later for an attack against the black king. Look at black's king, not many defenders around it. So, OK, it's still early days. This is still a very well-known position. There are even chessable courses on this position. I'm thinking by Lenia Dominguez, one of the very strongest American players now. But yeah, it's a solid choice for black. But if Eric doesn't know the ins and outs of it, I'm scared for him.
Yeah. We do see a lot of our viewers cheering on Eric in his match now against Magnus. Another move here.
Yeah, just getting ready to bring the black bishop out to a long diagonal. Very sensible. Both sides just developing. Magnus will castle the white king now.
So let's hear what Eric said to Sverre after Game 2 finished with a draw.
Eric, you stand against quite the hard attack there for a long time, and you deliver a good defensive game eventually.
I don't think I did, but somehow the position fizzled out into... well, I mean, I was just much worse. I was playing, I don't know, it's weird right now. I was sure I was going to lose that game. I think Magnus must have made some inaccuracy. I didn't see exactly where, but I was under pressure. And I'm just thinking right now, towards the end of the game, I missed a chance maybe to play h5. But the way I'm playing right now, I'm not surprised I missed. I'm missing so many moves in these games. But yeah, it was just one of those situations where I was in a bad position, so I decided, you know what, better play a pawn down and be active than suffer by holding my materials. So that strategy paid off, but I don't think it was because I played particularly well. So I definitely can't allow Magnus such favorable positions in the next game.
We had a tweet coming in here from someone who watched your interview earlier today, who said, it was hard to hear this interview from Eric Hansen. I love Magnus Carlsen, but keep your head up, Eric. Bounce back strong. Canada is proud.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the words of encouragement, but there's something very off with my head right now. I'm missing so much, and yeah, I think this game I was pretty lucky to come out with a draw.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Eric not feeling his best today. And in Game 3 here, the bar has now gone slightly over to Magnus' side. What do you think now, David?
Yeah, I'm not looking too much at the bar yet, but as Simon and I were actually just discussing during that interview, it's a bit of an odd opening choice. Normally, white is the one pressing for the advantage black. You just want to trade pieces off, you want to survive to the endgame, and you want to maybe just lock things up, maybe even go for the draw. So Eric, if he's playing for the draw in this game, even if he gets it, will need to strike back in the final game of the day.
Yeah. And once again, it was quite hard again to hear Erik so low.
Yeah.
And it just like one of the stories that kind of motivated me and brought me to tears actually was, I think, from, I can't remember the year, but it was to do with a Canadian speed skater, Dan Hansen. And the first time he played he skated in the Olympics. He was 16 years old. He came fourth, and everyone was like, wow, what an amazing talent. And then, of course, the Olympics is every 4 years, so he had to wait for another 4 years to have a chance. He was by then, super fast. And he kept messing up, his sister died and he had to race the day after her death. And he just kept messing up. There was something not working for him. And it was his final shot at the Olympics, and he was 32 years old. And, he's already made a mess of the first event, which is his favourite. And he comes to the last event that he's skating in, and he's like, OK, I have no shot at this. Let me just sit back and smile. Let me think about the journey that skating has taken me, all the amazing people that I've met. Let me just relax and enjoy this, and I'm going to skate for them. And he broke the world record.
Yeah.
He won. It was an incredible story.
So Erik has to take inspiration from that. And he mentioned actually in that interview he was in big trouble in the last game. He was lucky to make a draw, and sometimes that's when the momentum changes in a match. When you do make a lucky escape, suddenly no more pressure. Nobody expects him to win this game, so maybe that's when the best things happen. And meanwhile, a few moves on the board. Simon, do you are you revising your opinion of Black's opening just as we're about to see a big pawn sacrifice actually? Big move?
No, not at all. I mean, this move that Magnus has played is the idea and the position. It was first played, I think, by Pogolewski, and I've probably said that really badly, but it was played...
Pogolewski, yeah.
That's the one, yeah. And I actually met him once. He's a well-known theoretician. I think it was him against Tao who played this idea first, even going back to the 70s, 80s. It's a well-known idea, and the idea is to sacrifice a pawn but start a very dangerous kingside attack. And I think this is all theory. I've seen Harry move up in that position, and I would not be surprised if this is just, been seen before. And we can have a look at it on the analysis board. And the point is the pawn's taken, and David's shown that White's idea is then to push the white pawn forwards, attacking that knight. And you have to move that knight. Now, if the knight retreats, which is one obvious idea, you're very passive, and this pawn sacrifice gives White this open bishop. Look at the bishop pointing towards Black's king. And you can even bring more pieces around by now moving the knight. And we talked about this square a lot, the F5 square. I can't remember the saying now. F5, it will thrive, I think. Yep. And then you've got 3 pieces attacking a lone king. So this kind of position is extremely dangerous with the pawn. So I expect, if we go back a little bit, Erik won't want to go passive for that knight, but when it's attacked by the pawn, he will try to block the bishop and come forwards into this square. At least this way, you block out one of your opponent's attacking pieces. Still very dangerous, though. White could go for that same knight maneuver, or he could even bring a rook to the centre and threaten to capture the knight. There's many ideas, and this has all been seen before. And this is one of the reasons I don't like this opening for Black. I know lots of strong players play it, but it's so tricky to defend this attack. And let's see what happens. I'm sure now the knight comes forwards, as we said, and Magnus knows exactly what he's doing. The knight is heading towards the Black king. Magnus on the attack. Critical moment.
Yeah, and they always say that when a knight reaches the F5 square, it's worth at least a pawn. So it's such a great attacking piece. And I agree with you, Simon. This is very, very dangerous. And Magnus clearly knows his classics. I mean, I don't know whether this has been played in this exact move order, but the idea, that's so important.
Yeah, it's all about the idea and recognising patterns. I mean, that game you mentioned there, Simon, that Pologaevsky game with actually a really nice sacrifice in it, within it. Magnus, we've seen his memory. It's phenomenal. He knows that game inside out. He knows countless other games that have arisen in this position, or at least this type of position. And Erik, we mentioned, it's not his main opening. So that's the battle that Erik faces right now. He's facing a very confident Magnus Carlsen, who's analysed lots of little kind of ideas in this type of position. And it's not easy. It feels like an uphill battle already. Black 1 pawn up, but about to come under a big attack.
Do you know what I need? Sorry, I was just going to say, do you know what we need to do tomorrow? Well, I need to bring Eric some cake.
Yes.
Maybe not stolen
Pay for
cake,
it.
though. Yeah.
Of course.
Maybe he would like stolen cake. I would never do that intentionally. It was an accident. It's quite scary when the alarms go off and you're like,
my, yes.
you know, like.
And I can't believe the alarms went off.
The alarms
just
went
because
off.
of
For a cake.
For a
I know,
cake.
I know. And, but let's bring Eric some cake tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to get this lovely coconut cake. Oh, yeah, I love it. I'm going to bring it to Eric tomorrow.
Yes.
And
Let's
if
do
you're
it.
and if you're wondering what kind of cake this is, it's actually called a skolebolle in Norwegian.
Ah, yes.
It's very tasty.
School bun,
Yeah.
translated. It's very good. Yeah, that's one of my favorites as well, Simon.
a good one.
Yeah.
Worth stealing.
Yeah.
Don't ever do that. I didn't say that.
No,
Take it back.
Don't do that. And just a quick reminder to everyone, there is still very much time to enter our competition to win the Airthings View Plus. And you can do that by answering our quiz question, where we're asking you, who are you rooting for in the Oslo Esports Cup? And very importantly, why? And it's lovely to see your tweets and your answers, and you can tweet your answers using the hashtag #ChessChamps.
And great for the players to get your energy as well. A lot of you rooting for Magnus Carlsen, of course, if he wins his match today, and Pragnananda loses. He is down by 2 points against Duda, remember? Then they will be tied on points heading into the last day. But Magnus, he did win that match against Prague, so in direct encounters, Magnus will be on top of the table, actually. And also Duda will be only 1 point behind. It's going to be a dramatic final day in the tournament.
Yeah.
And a move.
Yeah,
We do see a defensive move from Eric. You know, he's retreated the bishop just to cover the all-important f5 square.
Yeah, so we have to show this. It looks really ugly, really counterintuitive. Retreating the bishop back to its starting square, back to where it came from just about 5 moves ago. But as Jovanka mentioned, there's only one idea in the position by this move, and it's to cover this dream square. So if the white knight jumps forward now, getting ready to attack the black king, then it will be immediately removed and traded off by the black bishop. And a trade here actually helps black a lot. Suddenly white loses that key attacking piece of the knight, and actually you can even gain time against the white queen now. Black's king much safer once the knight has left the board. So ugly move, but necessary maybe, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard move to bring yourself to play because, I mean, you don't want to move your pieces backwards. I mean, who on earth wants to do that? And Magnus has a couple of natural moves. The most natural is only got one piece which is not doing anything. Just look at the pieces, and that's the rook next to the king. David highlighting, and if we just have a look where that rook can move, always look at the pieces which are not doing anything, and you can move that 2 squares into the middle. And this actually creates some nasty threats, I feel, of capturing the knight next move. And when black recaptures, you can see you're clearing up the rook towards the queen, and there may well be a knight jump here. I mean, I can't see anything completely crushing, but something like David's put on the board. Look at those beautiful rooks. So that, to me, looks like a very sensible move. But you've even got ideas like bringing the other rook right down into the position. That could be a very funky move if we go back. Just maybe. I'm obviously looking at losing my rook over there, which is kind of ridiculous. But
You always want to sacrifice Simon.
I know, even in good positions, I've got to stop it. I've just got to stop it.
But in this position, there are triggers, there are kind of signals which show that you can get away with sacrifices, because look at the king. No defenders around it. And Simon, Simon, you mentioned a few days ago, it's all about this pawn as well. Any time as white you get a pawn to this square, it signals an attack in this direction against the black king. Somehow this pawn just takes away defensive squares that black wants to use. For example, the black knight wants to go back and defend, but can't use it because of this pawn. Any time as white you get a pawn like this, if you have major pieces on the board, queens, rooks, knights, etc., then go for an attack against the enemy king. That is the signal. So, yeah, nice move there. I'm expecting one of those two, Simon. As you mentioned, this one may be the most natural because it's not doing anything, this piece. And we know Magnus loves to bring every piece to the party. But this one also looking good.
I suppose, sorry, David, I've just seen one other move as well. I mean, you could move... Has he gone in with a rook? He looks like...
He has.
OK, wow.
You predicted it, Simon.
Wow, for once I got it right. So I don't think he's going to take the pawn near black's king, though. I think that's...
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe later.
Yeah, maybe later.
Well,
yeah.
He's cleared another square for his rook. Actually, the two rooks might team up on this line as well. Looking very good.
If Eric were to ask the question, what are you going to do with the rook on the 6th row, and just attack it?
With the bishop, yeah.
Yeah.
Then I
Is this waving that red flag and saying, come on?
think Magnus's idea is to get rid of the black knight. As you mentioned, there's no safe squares actually for the white rook on this line. You could make an argument for taking this pawn, but it feels premature to attack at the moment. So you need to get rid of black's best defender first, the knight. So trade it off. You can't actually take the white rook now with your bishop because white's knight recaptures, attacking the black queen, gaining time. That's very important. White would have 2 pieces now, a bishop and a knight, for just a rook. So black instead would have to capture the white bishop, and now the white rook will just sidestep 1 square. And look at this strength of the white rook right now. And we're going to see this actually happen in the position. Just looking at Eric's screen on the top right corner there, he's about to move his bishop to this square. So we might see this position and white's knight on a dominant outpost in the middle. Look how dark square domination has occurred while black only has a light squared bishop. It's looking very good, actually. I'm surprised the evaluation bar says 0.0 because I would be terrified as black.
Yeah, well, this is the difference between engines and humans. Let's be frank, you know, humans have that psychological fear, and, you know, maybe the engine some way down the line can spot some kind of nifty resource that the human just wouldn't. Okay, and Eric is asking the question to Magnus, and our guru, David, has predicted the right move. Bishop takes knight on the board.
Yeah.
Process of elimination, but it's very logical as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the nice trick if you take the rook. Maybe we could just show this as well. There's one more variation. We can maybe quickly show it.
Yeah.
If you do take the rook in that position, the knight takes. Okay, at the moment, it might seem okay for black because black can move the queen 1 square forwards and you're attacking 2 minor pieces. But this is where pattern recognition comes in and why you should practice your tactics, because there's a very nice move here. The bishop can simply take the pawn. This doesn't seem possible because a queen takes bishop, but then we see these patterns working. The knight now is able to do what we call a fork, winning the queen. So there's little patterns, and that's where you practice your tactics. They become second nature. After all, it's a game of patterns. You get used to them, you improve your tactics.
Yeah, and a couple of moves, but both sides just improving their rooks. And still, the status quo remains. White has a very strong rook here, very strong knight, very strong queen. It's just about whether black can fight against them. I wouldn't be surprised at some point if we see Magnus kind of lift this rook into the attack against the black king as well. Every piece heading in that direction. It looks very, very scary still for black. The bishop not being able to fight on the dark squares. So, Magnus trying to work out a way to attack.
Yeah, and whilst Magnus is figuring that out, well, earlier you both mentioned Polagaevsky, a famous player from the past, and I'd like to ask you a question from Elite Minds, who says, who is the best classical chess player of all time, in your opinion?
Classical chess player?
Yeah, okay, we have... Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'll let David go first, I mean, with that one, because there's so many. I mean, the best or the one we prefer the best? It's quite hard.
Well, it's up to you. You can
Matter of taste, maybe, as well?
Does that question mean the best chess player in classical chess, or does it mean with a classical style?
Classical chess.
Classical chess.
I mean, I would say Aliekin or Alekhine was one of my favourites because he sort of revolutionised the game when he came along. Before him, there were less rules, and he basically was a great attacker. But unlike Morphy, who was before him, Morphy attacked really like a complete nutter, basically. You know, his attacks were really unsound, but they were dangerous. Alekhine basically nearly always attacked after he got a position of strength. So he sort of developed chess a lot. But I don't know, David, what about who would you say?
I mean, first of all, that's a really good point, Simon. For example, this type of position where Magnus, he's built everything up slowly, that's when Alekhine would start attacking. You don't just attack out of nowhere. You attack when you have nice centralized pieces like White does right now. So Alekhine, good answer. I'll just say Kasparov, because I grew up when he was dominant, and he was so dominant for so long. I think he won, 6 World Championship matches, 5-6 World Championship matches, and in style as well.
My answer would be the same as well,
Kasparov. I was kind of thinking like older people. I mean, Kasparov. Okay. I mean, my favourite. Yeah, I don't know why. Why was I thinking dead? You know, I thought they had to be dead. You know, classical. I'm thinking, the old people then. But yeah, I mean, Kasparov, great answer. I mean, my favourite though is Mikhail Tal, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, he was he was just a lunatic, complete lunatic, and he was a one of a kind, absolute. You never had anyone like him, or had he in the future or past that's similar to him.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky, Simon, right, being chess players, and you mentioned you just did a course on Mikhail Tal. Just I mean, it doesn't even sound like work. It sounds like fun going through his games and playing through them.
And recording a 15-hour video course on Chessable.
Just a day's work in my life, you know. So, yeah.
Well, remember that, everyone. Simon does have that Tal. What is the name of the course again?
It's Life and Times of Mikhail Tal.
Yep, on Chessable with 15-hour videos that you can study to play like the entertaining Tal. And Magnus, an entertaining player himself. If he wins this game, he will win the match. Is that possible?
It's possible. I must say, I like Eric's last move. I thought Black couldn't even get one piece active, but Black now, with his rook occupying the third rank, and he's actually stopped that idea I mentioned earlier of White's rook kind of using the third rank to swing across and go for the Black king. And okay, I also like Magnus's move. This is what we call prophylaxis in chess. It's where you know that checks are coming later, so you get ready for them, you get out of the way in advance. You know what your opponent wants to do later. The king just sitting on the edge of the board, nice and safe, actually evacuating the first rank where it had no protection. So Magnus knows there's no way to break through yet. He's just improving every single piece to the maximum first.
And we did see Eric shake his head a little earlier. His clock is ticking down. We know he's not feeling confident today, Eric. Do you think Magnus is sensing that and playing some moves?
Yeah, you know,
on that psychology.
Definitely, you know, these top players, there's no disguising it, they are predators. When they sense weakness, they go in for the kill. Yeah. This is all the mark about being one of the world's best chess players. And chess is, after all, essentially a battle game. It's a war of strategy. And Magnus doing great things, you know, taking care of his king. He's posted his pieces on aggressive squares. And now it's up to Eric to come up with a response. And Eric now has to make a choice on how he's going to defend. Will he cope with his pressure? Will he try to resolve the difficulties in his position with active means? It's up to Eric now.
Yeah, it's really up to Eric, and he doesn't have that much time with which to actually come up with anything too fun, too creative, too energetic with his position. I mean, I'm looking at that kind of strategy we discussed earlier, how to improve your worst placed piece. And if you talk to Eric's pieces, the black pieces, actually the black rook on the third rank down in White's camp, very nicely placed. Black's queen a bit passive, but stuck there. Black's bishop, same, also a bit stuck. You have to improve the black rook next to the black king, and there we go. He stole the words right out of my mouth. He did improve that rook. And you could maybe make an argument for bringing the rook all the way across, teaming up the two black rooks together, but this one is maybe even more solid. We talked about the white pawn, the very strong white pawn in the center of the board. Eric just keeping an eye on that one. So, yeah, defending very, very well, Eric, over the last few moves. He just has to be careful of the clock situation. Down on time when you're defending, it's not an easy situation to be in.
Yeah. He needs to draw Eric Hansen to take this to a game 4. We could have a super short day if Magnus wins this game, and I did see the bars in a bunch of the other games going to the side of the player who, with a win, will end the match in this round 3 of games. Praggnanandhaa, of course, we are super interested in. He has to win this game, but the bar is over to Duda's side. And with only a draw, Duda will end that match and take all 3 points. Is Pragg struggling in that game?
It's a wild one. I'm just looking over at Pragg's game and trying to work out what's going on because it's chaos on the board. It looks like Duda sacrificed a piece temporarily, but will win it back with interest. So, yeah, it does look like Duda is in control. But Pragg, he's doing the right thing. He's taking risks. He needs to win, and he's trying his best.
And Anish Giri, he is also in a must-win situation, losing 2 games with some mouse slipping today. Liam led the bar all the way over to his side, and with only a draw or a win, Liam Le will take all 3 points in that match. Is Liam winning?
It's looking very good. It's also the type of position where Liam can maybe just shut things down and get a draw if he wants. So Liam in control of that match.
And Jordan, he is up by 1 point against Mamedyarov in that match. The bar may be more to the middle in that one. Is it possible to say if anyone is in charge?
It's in the balance right now, very equal.
All right, and with a draw, they will play a game 4. But Anish Giri, he is definitely struggling against Liam. We did hear in that interview talking about clicking or dragging the pieces. Is that actually a dilemma?
Yeah, it definitely is. And regular viewers of the show will know that sometimes I say, oh no, me and my arrows.
Yeah.
And actually, I've had the same problem, the same exact problem as Anish. Sometimes I click on a square when, for example, we have the analysis board, when I'm highlighting a square, but then I'll drag to show the arrows. And the mixture between clicking and dragging, it doesn't sound like it should affect things too much, but the computer has memory. So if it's remembered you've already clicked on a piece or clicked on a square before, and then you click on a new piece, sometimes it makes the move for you. So it can be tricky. I guess it's just practice. And Anish, he's played these events before, so it's surprising that it's happened now, but it does happen. It's understandable.
It does happen. And also another kind of scenario where mouse slips happen is when you've kind of picked up a piece, you're ready to move it, and then you realise actually you don't want to move that piece to that square. So often it's what you should do is you should actually take that piece and move it in a kind of unnatural ways and drop it off the board. And then it will go back to its original square. And
I'm saying there's so many new skills, aren't there, like online chess? Because I remember when you play traditional chess, it was literally like the only thing you can think. Very interesting to see how people move, right? In when they're playing with a board, because you get people slamming the pieces down, slammers. You get screwers. They screw the piece into the board.
Into the board.
You get like the elegant ones who look the other way. They do this. So they're like with their little finger up. Have maybe a little glass of champagne.
Yes.
So it's really weird. But here you've got the clicking, you've got the dragging. It's a new thing. But yeah, we have some more moves and I kind of like Magnus's knight manoeuvre there, Dave, but it's it.
I agree, Simon. It's really creative. I don't think I would have come up with this one because White's knight looked so glorious in the middle of the board just a couple of moves ago, but maybe we can catch up the viewers on what's happened. And Simon, you say you like this. I do too, I must admit. So if we just rewind a couple of moves, we left it here, and White's knight, as I mentioned, looks great in the centre, but everywhere it wants to jump forward too. Anywhere along these lines, it gets captured by this black bishop. The black bishop actually dominates the white knight right now. So Magnus looked for new avenues of attack. He dropped his knight back, gaining a bit of time against the black rook. And after the black rook retreated, challenging this guy, then the white knight rerouted itself. So a trade now, if it does happen, would very much favour white because this knight actually guards the white rook. The black queen cannot take it, so the black queen has to run away. And if we see the queen retreat, for example, just a trade of rooks, very simple trade of rooks, and white's knight coming in. Queen and knight, I think, will be better than this queen and bishop, especially because white has this really, really strong pawn in the centre right now. So I think that would be a mistake by Eric if he gets too nervous, too hasty, and captures the white rook. I think he needs to take a time out and maybe, with that variation in mind, step out of the way first with the black queen. And now this idea of trading rooks maybe comes with a bit more power. So maybe Magnus now would be forced to retreat or forced to at least trade on black's terms. But complicated position. And Eric, he's definitely the one on the back foot. Despite what the evaluation bar says, it's still white who is trying to be creative.
And that's kind of reflected in the clock times. Magnus just under 8 minutes, whilst Eric coming close to the 3-minute mark. One thing I have had experience in this type of position is that if White's attack backfires, then those passes on the left-hand side, they can be very strong. And, Eric, not following your advice, he's actually traded rooks.
Yeah, I don't like this. The change in pawn structure, we mentioned White's pawn being really strong earlier. It's even stronger now. And actually, maybe this is even better than what I suggested, keeping the rooks on the board. This second pair of rooks for Magnus, because now this white rook is actually going to go up to the 7th rank, 7th heaven, as we call it, where all of the black pawns lie, all of the targets are White's rook. If it takes the time now to get to that c7 square, I think Eric's in big, big trouble.
Yeah, this rook move that you suggested, diving the rook down to the 7th row, is so powerful, and it's the best row for a rook. Yeah. And, of course, let's not forget that White's other pieces are ready to spring in the action as well. There's a fantastic pawn 2 squares away from queening, nicknamed Delroy by Jonathan Rowson, he who wrote the 7 Deadly Chessons, and also a white knight planning to spring into the f5 square. It looks starting to look bad now, almost critical.
Eric on his screen, he brought his rook forward, he kind of changed his mind, brought it back, but then he did make that move. And it looks desperate to me. It looks like he's trying to go for White's central pawn, White's passed pawn in the middle there, but the black pieces, they're kind of jumbled up, and also it's allowed the white knight to jump in. Oh, Simon, we mentioned this knight. I mean, you mentioned the knight getting there eventually. It finally has made its journey here. Is that a signal that a big attack is incoming?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you pick this opening with the black pieces, you kind of got to expect what happened to happen, and then you've got to defend so precisely. I mean, it's not terminal yet by any means because that pawn is blockaded, and you know, it could have some counter-attack at some point. But I am with you guys that the white pawn is so strong. The white knight looks good. I don't know if Magnus needed to play that move straight away, but with the rook coming down, just everything seems to indicate that Magnus has a very comfortable advantage. The clock time as well is just another indication that this is going to be tough game for Erik to get something out of.
I think we've really got to applaud Erik if he saves this game. 1.5 minutes left now in a difficult position where there's a fine margin. I think, yes, the evaluation bar says only 0.6, but if Erik makes one slip, it's going to go right off in white's favour. So, yeah, dangerous times for Erik. I'm expecting him to move the black queen. You could maybe move the black rook across one square to attack the white knight. Then white's knight might jump in with a check. We'll see what happens, but either way, 1 minute now for Erik.
I know, and I have to say, I just took a look at the computer suggestions on my laptop, and I'm like, one of them is normal. The other two are just crazy. Actually,
Whoa.
diving forward with the queen.
That looks natural.
I mean, look at this pawn move.
Yeah.
And Erik doesn't play any of the top 3 computer suggestions here. We still see them on our screen. And the top computer move, as Jovanka says, crazy. Nobody in their right mind will ever play this. If black had pushed his pawn in front of his king, we would have had to kind of get the metal detector out and check Erik, because this is so unnatural, opening up the black king when you're about to get attacked anyway. The other move's more natural, maybe bringing the rook across, attacking the white knight and queen. This would have allowed white's knight to jump in with a check. But Erik, instead of finding maybe the third choice computer move, bringing his king to the centre, he's brought his king to the corner. Very human, but maybe flawed. And the white knight jumping in now. The reason the king maybe isn't so comfortable in the corner is because it no longer protects this pawn, which it would have done if the king was more centralised. How do you defend it now? It's not so easy. The black rook can step across one square, for example, but the white queen, when she moves, I'm not even sure if OK, this has happened. Not sure of the best square here or here, but no matter where she goes, it just looks terrible for black now. This queen is completely stuck. Black is essentially playing with a passive queen, passive bishop.
I mean, I think this game sort of shows you that, you know, Erik hasn't, you know, defended 100% well so far, but it shows you how important openings are at this level. And again, his opening is played a lot by top players. I still don't understand entirely why, to be honest, because it gives you a tough position. The computers say it's okay, but it's tough to play.
And we have a big result, you guys. It's a draw in Game 3 with Duda and Pragnananda, and that means Prag loses the match. Duda taking all 3 points, and if Magnus now wins this match, he will be on the same point as Pragnananda before the final day. And Magnus, he did win the match between them and will be in the lead. So this is great news for Magnus Carlsen. Duda also with 3 points will now be on 11 points. He's only going to be 1 point behind Magnus and Prag before the final day, and the bar shoots up for Magnus.
Yep, and we're not that surprised, I think, here in the studio, because the trend has been in white's favour. And Erik running out of ideas. The black queen is stuck, as we mentioned. The black bishop stuck. Black's rook can't really improve itself.
Nice. Such a classy move.
Sadistic.
Before we get to that move, black's pawns just weakened themselves. That's why the evaluation bar shot up in white's favour. But I'm not as optimistic about that move as you guys. White's king stepping back to defend some pawns, because I don't think the king's that well placed here. But either way, yeah, Magnus just showing that he has the time.
He's just playing with his food before he eats it, I think.
But
you know, he's just dangling it around and just thinking, don't play with your food though, Magnus, it can go wrong. So,
he's playing on the clock as well. He's just trying to play kind of nothing moves to make Erik a bit nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been, because it was so unexpected. I was expecting all these forward moves. Go forward with your rook, go forward with your queen. Instead, played with a flourish, like you suggested, maybe with some champagne as well.
Little finger up in the air.
There we see the arbiter trying to help out Jordan, maybe some tech issues there, maybe something going on.
6 seconds for Erik. He needs to make a move. OK, he retreats his bishop.
Does this allow the rook in, though?
Yeah, it has to allow the rook in.
I mean, that rook coming in
is
at the top of the board. White's rook now. That's one of many moves. White's rook has options. It can go up the board. It can go across the board to threaten checkmate. What is Magnus going to choose? That black bishop move. I mean, everyone groaned when they saw that, right? Erik himself internally would have been groaning.
Yeah.
That's not where he wants to put the bishop, but there was nowhere else on the board.
I mean, I really hope Erik, it looks like he probably will lose this game. He's not too upset. I think we all do after this game, because he's such a fantastic player and he's so talented. And it's just, from my eyes at least, some of his openings that is sort of letting him down. And that's because he's a streamer. He doesn't work as much on his openings as the other players. So I really hope he takes some confidence away and works on his openings and comes back stronger. I mean, I don't know. Is there any hope here? I mean, what can White do? You've mentioned those rook moves, David. Maybe we can have a look at one of them and just see how you think it could go. And
Magnus was looking towards the top of his screen there, so this is the move maybe we're expecting, going towards the top of the board. Magnus just taking a time out. He's got a lot of time. So bringing the rook up, this looks very, very strong. Hitting the black queen, hitting the black bishop behind it, and maybe indirectly the king. So this move, remember the rook is defended by White's knight. This move would force black to maybe give up a piece.
Sorry, David, I did just cheat there. I don't often to look at the computer, and there's an amazing idea that seems to win.
Okay.
Rook, instead of going that way, it's the other move you suggested, David, and it's threatening checkmate. So let's show this. We go here, and there's only one sensible way to block this checkmate. You have to block it with your pawn, because the queen is threatening to come in, and now rook takes pawn. Bang!
Wow.
Is a killer tactic here, and that's why I have to say I cheated, because I would not have seen this one.
What a move!
Phenomenal idea. Will Magnus see this idea? If he does it,
Oh, it's on the board.
Look at his camera. Look at Magnus's camera. He was about to play it.
Okay, well, black finds another move after I said it's the only move. But
just to explain as well, Simon, why we think it's so genius. The queen would have come across here. White sacrifices a rook, but no matter where you go with the king now, literally any square you move the king to, it's checkmate on the next turn from the queen. So, okay, Erik spotted that, I think, but in this position, instead of blocking with the pawn, he brought his rook across, and now plenty of moves should win, but the most obvious one is...
Yeah, he's played it.
Bring his knight back, but he's brought his knight back to f5, hitting this pawn, overwhelming this square, and remember, if the knight is captured, it's checkmate. We're about to see the game over. It looks like Erik, last stand.
8 seconds, 7 seconds. I'm expecting him to perhaps make one move, by maybe push the pawn forward, and he has. So Magnus still has to continue.
That knight can go back where it came from, maybe.
And it goes back.
But now...
Maybe this queen takes pawn.
Yeah, if the black queen takes the white pawn in the centre of the board, the white knight will retreat to the centre, and the black rook is falling. The black rook is pinned. The black rook can't move because of the white queen, and it's game over at any moment.
Curtains.
Beautiful game for Magnus as well. I mean, I think you don't even need to take the rook immediately here. You can increase the pressure on that rook. Don't rush into your decisions when you're playing them. But yeah, Magnus has played very well in this game.
Yeah, absolutely model game.
Yeah.
Erik just up against the world champion in his best shape, and White's rook now, we're expecting it to slide across one square to overwhelm the black rook. Black's rook is defended twice right now, but it can be attacked by a third white piece. You pin and you win. That's what I always repeat. That's the phrase that we're told when we're young, and here that is the case. Black's rook is pinned, and it will drop off the board.
I have to say, just looking at the scores as well, when Magnus wins this game, there's only one encounter left, and that's Van Forest versus Mamedyarov. And if Van Forest wins that one, it's going to be an early day.
Wow.
And it was looking good last time I checked.
He's got an endgame advantage, Van Forest, so we'll keep you guys updated on that game.
Absolutely. I mean, that would be insane that we had so many decisive games, that all 3 matches finished after 3 rapid games. What is that? Is it a mix of players just entertaining chess?
Also be a question of stamina. Who has the most energy for these closing rounds? You know, my friend always tells me, he says, Yovi, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. That's the most important thing, especially in a tournament. And here we're starting to see who has the energy, who has the motivation, who is still maybe better prepared. And, well, still waiting for Magnus to show just to make the move, the rook move. Why is he not
Actually,
making
the
it?
more I look at it, and same for Magnus, he stopped for a long time here. I thought White was about to make a move and Black resigns, but Eric, I think, has got a sneaky idea in mind, and there we go. Magnus doesn't play the move we thought, doesn't put pressure on the Black rook, and we have to jump in because this game might still go for a little while. Here, I thought the White rook slides across. We mentioned this pin. The Black rook is indefensible, but the Black bishop could suddenly leap out, pinning itself, pinning this White knight suddenly. And after a few trades, we see that actually Black might escape into the endgame. We might have seen this where, okay, White should be winning this pawn eventually. This is a winning endgame, but a lot of hard work to be done. So Magnus didn't go for that. He's going for the slow approach, defending his knight now. And after this pawn push, he's trying to win this Black rook with his own pawn. And this is even more sadistic than the other idea that we showed. Eric has to block the pawn advance, but Magnus now can win at will. This pin is never disappearing. He will win the Black rook at his leisure.
What a move. That was by Magnus as well. I mean, he's calculated that, yeah, he's just, that pin
3
is winning.
seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Eric has to make the move.
Did he make a move?
Has he moved in time, Eric?
It's tight. Game.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's lost on time, it looks like.
Oh no, worst kind of ending to the day for Erik Hansen. Another win for Magnus Carlsen. He decides the match. 3 points for Magnus Carlsen. That means he's in lead in the Oslo Esports Cup. A loss for Erik Hansen, who just runs off. What happened in the end there?
I mean, the position is bad. It's almost hopeless anyway, but Eric just couldn't find a logical move.